What's the little thing I do to get my mouse to work?
Just shake it.
Yes, but it's not.
I know. It's probably over here on this monitor. So just give it a second.
My other mouse wasn't working on my laptop either.
Okay, then maybe your Bluetooth is turned off or something.
Kara, just give us a minute, please. We're trying to figure something out. Unless you're dying or hurt, just give us a minute.
He doesn't believe me.
There's unimaginable proof that it was you.
Okay, what do you need me to do, Jaren? Jaren, what do you need me to do?
Go down here.
To what?
Click that.
This?
Okay, so click that.
What?
And
What do you...
turn on Bluetooth. Your Bluetooth is not on, so that's why your mouse was not connected.
Okay.
So now you're done. Okay, it's fixed. It doesn't make any sense because if this is off, this is not your speakers that you're using. It doesn't make any sense. So you can turn your speakers back up. It's fine. You can leave it as it is. It doesn't matter.
No, I have to be able to hear people. So now I need to go and test to make sure this is working.
Not sure what's working.
My sound.
But you have your sound
Not
ears.
yet.
Well, that's not guaranteed anything.
I'm working on that. I have to get them set up first.
That's what I was talking about. This doesn't matter because that's your computer volume, not your ear volume.
Well, how do I change my ear volume?
Well, you
I
can't
thought
do
it was
that
on my
until your
computer.
ears are connected.
So how do I change the volume in my ears?
I mean, you change them the same way. You just have to have them connected before you can change the volume. The volume should be remembered from last time. You shouldn't even need to change it.
Okay, well that's good to know. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Are you getting dressed before you go out there? They had lunch. They took the trash out. Jaron, I'm forwarding this link to Kira. Right here, Masterpiece Society login. That's where she needs to log in. This is the password. It's my normal password, capital MAS. I'm not sending it to her. That's why I'm telling you. Because I had it logged in.
Anything else here?
It's not working. It's not sticking anymore. Hello. You guys are?
No, not necessarily. But I just need to.
I forwarded it to your email, so whenever you're ready, you ask Daddy. Close the hallway door, please. Close the hallway door, please. Hey guys. Yep. Yeah. What time zone are you in, Morgan? Okay, so you are on the West Coast. Okay. Yep. Okay. Yeah, that works because, everyone's schedule is different. So if Monday's not a great fit for you to get that in, then find the day that works. And like you said, as long as there's notice ahead of time, I think that's what helps to know what topics we're covering. And like Michelle said, it's great to switch. I go back and forth between liking to stay consistent in a room because you get to know the people that keep coming back to that particular topic. But it's also so refreshing to get a different perspective from each of the mentor moms of that topic. Because we each have our own unique experience and stuff too. So I think that's always helpful. Yeah. Yep. Hey, Debbie. Sometimes she comes in as Demir or Chris. Her son's name is sometimes on there too. Good. Yeah. She took up a big presence, you know. She has a big heart and just had so much empathy and compassion, and just in her head was able to keep all the details of everything that was going on. And yeah, she's missed for sure. Has that been an adjustment on the team's end of, I know Morgan was talking about recalibrating schedule and what's working and figuring out a different rhythm of handling some systems and stuff. But yeah. Well, if it ever works out to have her come on as a mentor mom again, is that something that's a possibility? Yeah. It works. Yeah. I'll start with M. Yeah. That's so funny. Yeah. everybody. Good to see you. Teresa, I haven't seen you in a while. Good to see you here. Chantel, I want to make sure I get everybody's name. Lauren, is it Anne or Mary? Because I recognize... Oh, you're on mute. Ah! You're muted. I can't... There you are. It's Anne. Okay, I recognize you. So, yeah, is this, Lauren and Chantel, is this your first time in one of these breakout sessions? Or have you been to any of these before? Okay. Yeah, well, I'm glad you're here. I know it's always hard to make space in our day to just take some time out to sit and connect, but that's one of the values of these. And if you haven't been here in a while, I know Debbie always likes to set it up where it's like we walked into a coffee shop and, there's a theme topic for different tables and we just come and talk about what's happening. This particular topic we're covering today, and I love how Debbie calls it more so the challenging behaviors, because demand avoidance is kind of a diagnosis that's more common in Europe. It's the PDA diagnosis, persistent demand avoidance, which I like Christy Forbes. It's pathological demand avoidance is the official title, but Christy Forbes calls it persistent drive for autonomy, which is a much more healthy outlook of it, and I love that. But, I always like to start off when we're talking about challenging behaviors and the idea of demand avoidance is Ross Greene's quote that your child is not giving you a hard time, he's having a hard time, is just a huge shift for me, and I even feel the physical difference when I remember that phrase, because I think a lot of times when we have kids that have those challenging behaviors, we get triggered. I don't know about you, but I get triggered, and it stirs up, emotions in me, and I'm learning to have, we call them objective conversations with my son, where I'm trying to take emotion out of it and just being able to describe patterns of behavior we're seeing, or, because the other thing Ross Greene talks about is that kids do well if they can, and if they're not doing well, we need to investigate and find out why, and a lot of times it's a lagging skill. But when we bring emotion into the problem solving, hey Tiana, hey Jessica, when we bring, hey, I wasn't sure if it was you, Tiana, or a different Tiana. Yay, love that you're here. When we bring emotion into it, that's when our kids start to internalize, I'm bad. And I'm saying this from experience and even just from today. We had a collaboration conversation this morning with my son that, emotions got involved and it doesn't necessarily go well, but when we can take the emotions down and we de-escalate that, we actually get to see solutions that we can work on. And it oftentimes with our kids with ADHD and executive function, it comes down to lagging skills that just need continual development. So with that framework in mind, I would just like to turn it over to you guys. I always love to start with what's going well, because even if we're having the hardest day or the hardest time, there's something good that comes out of it. Like even today with the hard conversation we had with my son, things escalated to anger and to shame, and then once things calmed down, he was really able to start owning that these are tools that he just needs to have in order to succeed, and started to recognize that if he starts owning these tools, he will do well. So, yeah, I just open it to you guys if you want to share maybe a quick win or something that went well, and then dive into maybe what you're struggling with, and just kind of go around. I'd love to give everybody a chance to share today. Yay! huge. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. That was going to be my question for you, is because it seems like you made huge, just mental health wise and self-esteem wise and even connection between the two of you. So it sounds like there's not any demand avoidance with her schoolwork. It sounds like that's going really well. Or are you finding some of that? Yeah. 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 And, here's a strategy that I'll share with you that has worked in our house when the demand gets really intense. Instead of just saying no, and this could be an experiment that you try, and depending on where your daughter is, it may or may not work. But when my kids will say no, and I'll just give an example of a math lesson, like, okay, it's time to sit down and do math, and they say, no, I don't want to do it. I'll ask them, well, how many problems can you do? And if they say one, that's a win. I'm like, all right, let's just do one problem and then we're done. So instead of just saying, no, we're not doing anything, I'll say, well, if you could pick how many, and if maybe they'll say zero. My son would say zero. How many can you do? Zero. Okay, well, we'll try zero today, and that means no lesson. But, slowly giving them that idea of it doesn't have to be all or nothing. It can be, let me just dip my toes in. Okay. Yeah. So her no is not having the tutor come to the house. Yeah. Yeah. Even something like, can the tutor text you? Can you touch in with the tutor with a text or a phone call? So there's still some kind of connection and communication, because sometimes it's just getting over that hurdle, but still staying in touch and just checking in with progress or something. That could be another next step for something like that. Yeah. Yeah. I love it. That's good, because a lot of our kids are in shutdown, and to see them not be in shutdown anymore and to see them growing and making progress, and we're all about the 1% gains, and here in Florida, because we homeschool as well, and the only law that's in place for homeschoolers in Florida is that children make progress commensurate with their ability. That's how it's written in the law. But what I love with that is that you ask, where is the ability of my child at today? Because it's going to look different for every child and at every season, and are they making progress? That's all they have to do. It doesn't have to be this huge leap. It doesn't have to be this next grade level, even at the end of the school year. It's just, are they making progress? And sometimes that progress is mental health, and sometimes it's emotional, and sometimes it's academic. And yeah, so yay for you. Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of times this stuff is happening internally in our kids. And we don't necessarily, it's like those seeds being planted in a garden. Like if you're a gardener, you know, you plant the seed in and you water it and the sun comes and shines and you don't necessarily see that sprout come out, but you know something's breaking open in the shell. You know that, you know, a seedling is starting to flourish. And, you know, I know that your story will encourage a few other moms that I have had connections with in the coffees where their kids are in shut down, just to know that eventually. And I know, Tiana, your kids have been there too, so to see them eventually start to open up and share and get excited about what they're learning. So, yeah. Well, we'll be thinking about you as the winter months come. So if you can, do you know, what is that term? I keep wanting to say Haiji, but it's not Haiji. Hugi? It's a Swedish, I have the book, it's like I think it's Swedish, is it? It's about creating cozy atmosphere. Yeah. So, yes. Yeah, so embrace that, because that builds connection too. Doesn't always have to be outside the house. So make home the safe place and you'll be all right. Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing. It's exciting to see. Does anybody else want to share where you're at? Maybe share a win? Sure. Yep. Perfect. Yes. Yep. Wow. Yeah. That's huge. Yep. Sure. Yeah. They call it flooding. So when they get that anxiety and they get overwhelmed, they literally get flooded, and you can't think through a lot of the things. And so the behavior, I like how Mona Delahook says it, when your nervous system is dysregulated or your executive function is flooded, it comes out in behavior, because that's the only way. It's an automatic nervous system response. It's not I'm thinking this, so I'm going to do this behavior. It's just an automatic, yeah. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Yep. You have someone else that comes along inside and says, "Oh, you smell like onions," and then they take offense, but then they're like, "Oh, wait." There's a quote I love from an old mentor of mine, and she says, "It doesn't matter who gets the credit, it just matters that your kids eventually get it." And sometimes them getting it, like you said, comes in this frame of being hurt by someone else's outspokenness about what they did, because that's really what they did, like they spoke out. But it wasn't that his reaction or his thought process about it was wrong. It was how did he communicate it, and what did that communication feel to the rest of the room. So that's a huge lesson for adults to learn. Like, and I think that's the internalization that our kids have to, that just because he got called out on it doesn't mean that his thought process was wrong. Doesn't mean that, his thinking was wrong. It's just, okay, here's a lagging skill of how to communicate that needs to be developed. And that's hard. Yeah. 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 And that's immediately where they go to. And it's hard to, it's hard to grasp. And that's part of the conversation we had with my son this morning, because he internalizes immediately, something's wrong. And I'm like, no, we're just trying to give you perspective on this long pattern, not just today, not just yesterday, but perspective of the past and perspective towards the future and stuff. And I see several hands raised, so I want to make sure we give everybody a chance. But one encouragement is I love that idea of having a one-on-one with the teacher, so the teacher can understand his heart too, and not just for him to understand what she values, because that idea of her joking with other kids, for some kids it can be very funny and engaging, and for other kids it can be very hurtful. And I say that from experience with my own son and one of my very best friends. We homeschool, and we did this co-op together where 4 of us rotated each other's homes, and we taught different subjects with our kids and stuff. And she's that type of teacher. She will antagonize and joke, and for her it's playful. She likes to poke and get things out of it. But for my son and for another girl in the group, it hurt them. They didn't like it, and they didn't like how they felt in it. And so I had to have that hard conversation as a friend to a friend to say, I know your heart and I know what you're meaning. But it gave her awareness to say, I can still be who I am with these other kids who like it, but I'm going to do something extra and something special for these other 2 kids. I'm not going to talk to them that way, and I'm going to address them differently. And now my kids love her. Yeah. And that's the black and white thinking. That's it's just not okay. It's, yeah. And that's okay for him to feel that. Yeah, I would encourage that and say, you know what, you're right, it's not. And maybe society just accepts it. And it's not necessarily always okay either, even if it's playful. Chantel, I see your hand up. I didn't know if you had a comment or if you wanted to share what's going on with you. Yep. I know. That's amazing. Yeah. Yeah. Two things I want to point out to you in that, and if anyone else has anything they want to chime in and share, please do. But one, I want to go back to kind of your journey, because there are so many wins in that journey in and of itself. And I think a lot of times we're treading water so much that we don't see the progress that's happening. But you being able to deep dive and learn and shift your paradigm towards your child as the parent, that's huge. You being on your child's education team and advocating on behalf of him and not feeling like, this is one thing I share with parents all the time, the educators are not the experts in your child, and they're not the ones dictating their path. You as the parent are part of the team. And so for you to jump in and be part of that team and be a voice for your child, that's huge, because a lot of parents get stuck there. To see that you have other people coming around and them accepting, we call it the drip campaign here in Brighton Cookie, where you're dripping information to them, to see them accepting that and appreciating you sharing that and implementing that, those are amazing wins, like all of that, as much as hard as it feels that we're working through it, because this is a child's life, and it's impacting how he shows up in the world and what he feels and thinks about himself. So knowing that there are people on his team supporting that. And then the fact that you have an advocate to help with the IEP. That's another huge thing, because the system is under-resourced. And so if they don't have to provide the tools for the parent, and the parent agrees not to have them, then that's good for them, but it's not good for the child. So having an advocate to say, no, this child needs this, that's another huge win. The other thing I want to mention is, have you taken time to celebrate this big day with your child and maybe even ask him, what was different about today that helped you show up this way? What was different about the lessons that you enjoyed doing? And getting him to internalize his own thought processes towards things. Yep. Don't make it a big deal. That's what my kids always say. Yeah. Don't make it a big deal. Yeah. Yeah. They want to feel. Yeah. Yep. And and maybe not even go back to this particular day, but the next time something good happens, asking, I think, more explicit questions like, well, how did the teacher give you the assignment? What was the assignment about? Like, instead of asking him how he felt about it maybe, but just, what was different? What got you, interested in it? Because sometimes our kids have a hard time with emotions attached to things too, so keeping it very surface level can help. But it starts to train their brains to think the way, to understand how they respond to things and look for those things. And I'm doing the same thing with my son. He's 16, and we're still doing, we call it the review and the preview, and it's something I'm getting better at each time I do it. But the idea is reviewing the end of the week with him and noticing what went well this week, because we do it for ourselves as parents, but are we training our kids to notice, hey, what went well for you today? What did you enjoy doing? What did you like about today? Where are you seeing improvement in how you're handling your lessons? And noticing that, because we're so quick to look at how far they're behind, or the lessons they didn't turn in, or the grades that they're getting. But there's always good things, too, that are happening even with that. So, yeah, just taking time to notice. And go ahead. Yeah. Sure. That's good. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Such good stuff. Yeah. That was really good. And I just go ahead. Yep. What works? Yeah, absolutely. Yay! Such good stuff. I love it. And I just want to touch on what you said too, because our kids don't outgrow their wiring, but their development helps other growth areas strengthen things, so it's not a matter of outgrowing or healing from how they're wired. That's not the issue. But as they develop and as their brains develop and they get new tools and new skills, it helps. So, good stuff. Yeah. Anvi, it's good to see you. Have you looked into Mr. D Math? You can't have what? It's in the chat, yeah. Yeah. Gotcha. I will say with just a caveat on that, if he does the live class, the live instruction for the week is in chat mode, but there's 3 help sessions a week that are live that they go to, and that's on video. So when they're in the big group discussion, it's the teacher teaching the lesson and the interaction is just in the chat, but every week they have 3 live help sessions where the students get to come on live, and it's a different teacher than what teaches the initial week's lessons, but it's all video based, so they get to see each other and talk, and they go around the room just like we are here, and each student is getting direct assistance with a specific problem. And they're very big with homeschoolers that are accelerated and asynchronous and all of that, which is why I bring them up, because they'll take a 9-year-old if he's in pre-algebra. That's what they do. Yeah. 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 That's always the challenge, because we think school's going to be easier to send them off to, but then we're dealing with a lot of other challenges, and sometimes we think homeschool's going to be easier, but it still has its own challenges. So with our kids, we just have challenges, and sometimes we just have to decide what's the best fit environment for the child, and then how can we handle those challenges with the support. I do have a couple thoughts on handwriting, and I don't know if anybody else has some to chime in. You had mentioned that sometimes he can be stubborn. And I call it resistant with my kid when he's like that, and I have to reframe that. We call them reframing those roadblocks, is what my husband and I call it. Because when we view our kids as being stubborn, or we review them as being resistant, it automatically puts us in this defense mode of trying to get them to do what we want. And so sometimes I'll ask, well, what's going on with him? It's that whole, it's not the behavior, that's just a symptom. So why is he not wanting to do this today, and what choices can I give him in how we get it done? So it can be things like going outside and getting a stick and doing the handwriting practice, because a lot of our kids with dysgraphia, they need big movement to get the brain to wire in how the letters are written, and we're so quick to push the fine motor movement with handwriting, but going out and using a big giant stick and drawing in the sand, or getting window markers and writing on the glass sliding door to do the handwriting, it doesn't always have to be pencil to paper. It could even be a game where if you're wanting him to recognize how letters are formed, you could write them up and put them on the wall and give him a Nerf gun, and he has to shoot at the D or the B, certain things like that. That was one thought I had, is just what choices can he have? And then if you're working on writing, I find it funny that math and writing are the things that you're not outsourcing, because that's usually what most homeschoolers outsource. And everything else they just do read aloud. So you're in a unique position with that. But with writing, my question is, are you doing handwriting, or are you also doing writing as in getting his thoughts onto paper? Okay. Are you asking him to handwrite what he's writing? Or you're just doing that as a separate thing? I was going to recommend them too. Yep. Yep. Okay. Yeah. Well, and the question is, what if he does skip that day? And then you just say, all right, we're not in the frame of mind to do it today. Let's see what we can do tomorrow. Or instead of doing it in the book, you get the marker and you practice writing a couple F's, or D, whatever it is that you're doing. The other thing with handwriting without tears is they have these little crayons. They're called flip crayons. I don't know if you've seen those on their product page. It's a really short crayon, and it's a different color on each side, and they flip it depending on what color that they want to write with, and the flipping method actually strengthens their fine motor skills, but then them having two color choices to choose how they're going to write it also helps encourage that. And sometimes with the workbooks, I'm going to look at your comment in just a second. With the workbooks, they're using pen or pencil to follow the paper, and you could take the concept of what they're teaching in the workbook and bring it outside of the workbook. So you can still do the lesson as it is, but again, instead of using pencil and paper, because handwriting is a memory, it's a working memory, muscle memory skill. And, I'll tell you, my son is 16, and his handwriting is not very legible even to himself. And if he handwrites in his planner, I'm like, okay, what lesson are you planning to do? I don't know. I don't remember what I wrote. And so he recognizes that if he wants to remember what he wrote, he's got to take his time to write it, or he just types it. So I wouldn't put so much pressure on the handwriting. I wouldn't give up on it because I think it's an important skill and it's just a good developmental thing. But I wouldn't put the pressure on. I would just find ways to make it fun. Even if he wants to write on himself, take the pen and write your name in cursive on your hand. Write traits about yourself that you like on each finger. And this is Brave Writer does that. She has a couple little fun writing lessons that she has the kids work through. But, ways to make it fun. I know Jessica's putting in here speech to text for writing. Yeah. 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 What if instead of calling it a day off, what if you replaced it and you alternated and you say, okay, today instead of handwriting, we're going to play a game. It'll still be a language arts game or a memory game. And then, or today, instead of handwriting, we're going to do our fine motor skills. So we're going to work on pinching, and we're going to work on, using pipe cleaners and making color contrast. If you Google ways to build fine motor skills. So you're still working towards the progress of the handwriting skill, but it doesn't feel drudgery to them every single day. And if we mix in fun, they're more willing to do the hard work when it's being asked of them. Those are just some suggestions, yeah. And graphic organizers was another thing I learned as my son got older and got into more involved writing. A lot of times they take the graphic organizers away from the older kids, and our kids need them. And sometimes he would put his thoughts in the graphic organizer, and then I would type it up for him as he dictated it to me, even as a teenager. Jessica also mentioned, could you scribe for him for a few weeks to give him a break of the demand? Yeah. And scribing, go ahead, Tiana. Brilliant. I love it. I love it. I've done that with math sometimes where I'll do the kids' math test and I'll intentionally do some wrong answers and then they have to check. They have to grade my test. So they're still figuring out the math problem, but then when they see ones that I got wrong, they get to circle it in red, and tell me, you got that wrong. I did that when they were little. But yeah, it reminded me one time I learned how to write the Greek alphabet to understand dyslexia from a different perspective. The sound and symbols for Greek are completely different than the sound and symbols in the English language. So yeah, it helps give you a little bit more compassion on your child too for what their handwriting looks like when you're writing with your non-dominant hand. Brilliant. I love that. Yeah. Zora, I know we only have a few minutes before they boom us into the big room. Oh no, we have 1 minute. I'm so sorry. There's a lot of people in this community that homeschool. You'd be able to get a lot of support, so you wouldn't be doing it alone. I'll just share that. I did too. Yeah. Yeah. And when they leave, the whole picture dynamic changes. So I'm like, wait, where was that person who was just talking? So my eyes feel like they're darting all over the room, but I'm trying to find the person who was talking. Yeah, it's funny. Was it Zara? Zara? Okay, yep, she's been in my room a few times. So I will say one of the challenges I find with doing some of the breakout rooms is when we do have people that come in that are specific for homeschooling, I feel like some of the people that are there that don't homeschool aren't connecting in the group. And I know at one point there was one mama who, this was a while back, but I struggle with how to handle that some days because you got some that really want to dive deep and talk about homeschooling even though it's a different topic in the room. And so I'm wondering if I should pause the room and just say, hey, I recognize that not everybody here is a homeschooler. If you want to go into another group right now, please feel free. If you want to stay and listen, you're welcome to stay. I don't want to have them feel like they're stuck listening if homeschooling is not something. It's a good idea. Yeah, and sometimes it comes up just in the topic. So they'll be talking about, like today was demand avoidance, and then they mention we homeschool, and this is how we do, and then we get into the topic of curriculum options and strategies. Sometimes, I know, Tiana, you were in the room today, I think some of the strategies can still be helpful for whether you homeschool or not, because you can help your kids with homework. But when it gets very specific about homeschooling, it can get a little challenging in a big room that's not specific to homeschooling. Yeah. The putting my career on hold, is that what you meant, that one? Yeah, that was a good one. Yeah. Yeah. I have a phonetic spelling of it. I'm going to go grab the book off my shelf because we were just talking about that in our breakout room today. This idea of hookah. Let me go grab that book. Hang on. I'd be curious to ask Tiana, since she's new on board into the team, but she's been part of the community from the beginning, if she noticed a difference with the engagement in the Facebook group with the mentor moms not being as active or the coaches not being as active in the threads. Did that shift anything for you in your experience in the group? Yeah. Yeah. Yep. It adds up. Yeah. Yeah. Because it's easier to just go to one spot. Yeah. 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 I wonder too how much, like Tiana, I love that you noticed kind of a void and you stepped up and engaged more, and made me wonder how many more members took that initiative and made more peer-to-peer, member-to-member engagement happen as well. And it, which is why you're here today. Yeah, taking initiative and seeing that, yeah, it's huge. So maybe it's just a beautiful blend of. Or could she ping it in Slack and one of us can jump in and help too? Just, put a question in there. Yeah. If you could have a coaching group for teens and young adults on executive function, my goodness, that would be amazing. Self-regulation, like taking these theme topics that we have, but gearing it towards the teen and young adults where they can get in a room with other like-minded kids and see that they're not alone. I don't know, is that something that's on your radar when you talk about the teen, young adults? Or are you talking about classes geared for them to watch? Okay, yeah. Would it be something where you had parent and child joining together as a team? Or would it just be the teens and young adults? Yeah. No, and honestly, if the parents aren't aware of the ideas that they're learning, the parents aren't there to help them implement them either. So I don't know. Okay. Yeah. 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 And yeah. And even with suggestions, or if they come out and ask, what do I do with this, or how do I handle this, or what do I choose, I'll often say, here's what's worked for my kids, and here's what I've tried. And then I also emphasize it may or may not work for your family. It's an experiment. Here's a resource you can try. Like, I try and bring that vocabulary in to say, from my experience, this is what's worked. It may or may not work for you, but it's an experiment. Yes. 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 Yeah. Yay. Yeah. Yeah. That's funny. That's funny. Yeah. Yeah, and what if you looked at your BHAG vision that you put down and you brainstormed what are smaller sessions, co-working sessions, coaching sessions that we can do around those ideas to really create that culture and atmosphere within the community. That would be something to brainstorm tomorrow too. Yeah. 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 The other thing that does for the parents that contribute is it lets them see how much growth that they have had in their own life and in their own family, and it builds their confidence in what they're doing too. Good deal. Bye. Alexa, turn off the video lights.